Happy Chocolate Milkshake Day, and welcome back to the Sandlot Cast. Week 1 is in the books. Offenses are terrible. It's time to panic, I guess, and we're here to tell you why. Because, holy crap, Week 1 was a disaster. This week I've got Hillers with me. Hillers, how's it going?
You pretty much said it. Who knew football was bad now?
It was
That's a
brutal.
thing. That's a thing, I guess.
It was brutal. Just effing brutal.
It's hard to watch.
Yeah. So what we're going to do this week, well, what we were going to do, and I'm throwing a curveball at you here, Hillers. We were going to do like the one big thing for each team.
That always
but
works.
Instead, we're just going to do the normal team overviews because we haven't really done that. We did that kind of in a prediction thing, but now that we've actually seen the teams perform, we're going to kind of run through them real quick. Now that we've actually seen how the playing time is going to kind of work out on a lot of these teams, and if a lot of these predictions came to fruition. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to have our first power rankings of the year. So yay, power rankings! So everybody can bitch about how they're not ranked high enough. Here's a spoiler alert: you're not going to be ranked as high as you want to be.
Yeah, I looked at it. I was like, I don't know. Everybody's in the middle, I guess.
This is the hardest time I ever had picking the top team. I have no idea who the best team in the league is right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's a total crapshoot. For me, it's just line them up, and that'll be a baseline to talk about how people's stock is falling next week.
Yeah, it was bad. So
when this is inevitably way different.
Yeah. So anyway, we didn't have you on for the draft podcast. You had a prior.
Did you not? I saw it. It seemed like I was there. People were asking me questions.
Yeah, well, no, that was Nick's impression of you. That wasn't you. But just real quick, if you could give us, what did you think of the draft, as far as how that went? Just give us kind of a quick synopsis of that one.
It did seem unusually competent and straightforward, but now I'm looking at this and I'm like, who knows anymore,
Yeah.
I'm not getting the sense that I do in some years that there's, people at the very top and people way down. Well, there's still a couple people way down at the bottom.
Yeah.
Like Nick, for instance, with the zero quarterback strategy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not getting the sense that that there's like a clear favorite and like runaway winner here.
We've got a zero quarterback strategy and a zero kicker strategy this year in the league, so we'll see how that goes for everybody. But all right, so let's get into it, Hillers. Let's start with what we do. Let's start with the beer division because this is where I think the top stories are right now in the league for us. We're going to start with Touchdown Jesus at the top of it. They went 2-0. They beat. They scored 111 points. They beat Nick and Pappy Van Winkle. And just looking at it here, we're totally unprepared for this as well. We're really going downhill in the preparedness, guys. This is what kids do to you, by the way. You just can't do these things anymore. But anyway, let's start out with Touchdown Jesus here, Hillers. Give me what you think of this team. Nope, I lost you. I can't hear you. Can you not hear me? And we're back. Sorry, we had some Skype difficulties there, but we're leaving off Hillers. We're gonna hit Pritchard's team here. Tell me, what do you think of Pritchard's team overall? He put up a lot of points this week.
Yeah, he did, and I think this is going to be one of the teams that is consistently sort of near the top here. I'm not thinking that Mike Gillisley is the all-time solution there, and that this is always going to, that he's a new superstar. I don't trust anybody in the New England backfield, and he did get 30 points out of his defense. But then again, guys like Powell and Murray, that they didn't really show up, and they definitely could on any given week. And I think he has a lot to be excited about with Tyreek Hill. So.
Okay. Yeah, I think this team's in the top. To me, I think the league kind of breaks down into like a top half and a bottom half, and they're all kind of the same in that top half and the bottom half. So I don't know. I think this team's in that top half. What I'm concerned about is Mike Gillisley. Yeah, he had 22 points, but it was basically on, like 5 carries for let's check the stats here. He did have 15 attempts. 15 attempts for 45 yards, but 3 touchdowns. So he was averaging 3 yards a carry, but ended up getting 3 touchdowns. I don't know. Maybe Gillislee is this year's LeGarrette Blount, and maybe that is the way that's going to go. If it is, this team is going to be scary. But right now, I just think he's in that top half of teams that could compete, and he's not in the bottom half of teams that won't compete.
Right.
That's
about as close as I can get to. But I mean, everybody here seems like a reasonable play. I'm not looking at anything here and saying, "Oh boy, that's a problem."
So Dez Bryant last year finished number 24 in wide receivers, and since Dak Prescott took over, hasn't really been Dez. You know, he's been okay.
Yeah.
Are you worried about him at all? Like, is he?
Yeah. I mean, I'm a little quicker to jump off bandwagons than some other people, but when the data starts trending down, I don't care how many Pro Bowls you were in 4 or 5 years ago. You know what I mean? It's like if you're not putting up the points, you're not starting in my lineup, and I'm probably looking for trades or something.
You were never a Dez guy to begin with, though.
No, not especially, but I recognize that at one point he was at the top of the game there, and he was a top whatever 5 to 10 wide receiver, but it hasn't been that way for a while, and I wouldn't be, trying to buy low on him. I think he might stay low.
Yeah. I mean, and jumping back to the running backs, on one hand, Gillislee had a big day and might not have that continually, but DeMarco Murray had a bad day, and he's probably going to do better. So that'll.
Bilal Powell can get more than 4 points too.
Can he though? Can he?
Probably. He did last year.
On the Jets offense.
In that same, situation. So
that's not the same situation though. That team's a lot worse this year. The Jets are, but I mean, Bilal Powell's fine. He's a flex, whatever. He'll be fine, I guess.
Right.
All right. Next team in that division. This is the one. Here's the big one we want to talk about. Everybody wants to hear about here. The Dad Dicks. Dad Dicks took it on the chin on Sunday.
They did.
They were able to pull out a win against you, Hillers.
I know. It's terrible.
I think they put up only 73 points, but ended up going 1-1 with that. They won by, what did they beat you by, 1.5 or something?
Less than a point.
8.8 points they beat you by.
Mm-hmm.
Mainly because who did you have going Monday night? Dalvin Cook could not get 8 more yards for you.
I don't blame him. He showed up. It was everybody on Thursday night that screwed me.
Yeah.
I had every fantasy relevant underperformer of the Thursday night game.
You know what screwed you? Starting the Chiefs defense against the Patriots. That's what screwed you.
It did.
You got to pay more attention to defense, man.
I wanted to change him out. I didn't realize it was the Thursday game until waivers had already ran Thursday morning.
Yeah.
I'd had a bid in and then realized it was pointless. So I was like, well, if one does good, the other will do bad. But they both did bad.
But anyway, jumping back to the Dad Dicks, who took it on the chin this week.
He did.
David Johnson with a broken wrist will be having surgery and is out for 2 to 3 months. Most likely our entire fantasy regular season. Potentially this entire NFL regular season, depending on how his recovery goes. David Johnson and Le'Veon Bell carried this team to a championship last year. Hillers,
on their backs.
What does this do to the Dad Dicks?
Not so scary anymore, right? With just one, top tier running back. At 2, you're just like, oh, they're always going to beat me because one of them is going to put up points. Well, this is not a team filled with depth. And the Redskins looked bad. I don't know if Kirk Cousins is going to be able to save him from this. It's like I'm looking down the lineup here. I'm like, well, where's his savior? And this is a solid lineup. The people are fine, but not championship caliber fine.
So check his bench too, because he's got Austin Hooper down there. But that's gonna
Austin Hooper. That'll do it.
Yeah, but I mean, if he continues what he did this week, he had 18 points as a tight end. I don't know.
You think he's going to continue? Austin Hooper's going to have 18-point tight end weeks?
He's got Devontae Parker down there on his bench who got some upside potential this year with Jay Cutler throwing to him. He likes those big targets.
I think you're proving my point here.
I know. I'm just
Those
saying.
Those guys are garbage.
You got to look beyond the starting lineup. But I agree. I mean, going from having the top two picks in every draft this year were Le'Veon Bell and David Johnson, and he just lost one of those guys. And you look at his receiving core, it's okay, but it's not scary.
It's fine.
You know?
Yeah, but I'm not terrified of anybody there.
There is one reason this team won the championship, or two reasons this team won the championship last year. And
Exactly.
those are Le'Veon Bell and David Johnson. One of those reasons is gone. Now this team is mortal. The Russian has been cut. And
Right. Well, and I think maybe he was thinking, Kirk Cousins would have big 30-point days all the time, and I watched some of that Redskins game, and it didn't look that way to me.
no, but Cousins always. I don't think he was thinking that. I think he was thinking Kirk Cousins will be a top 10 QB. He'll put up 15 to 25 ish on average, and and he'll be fine. But he's also a slow starter. I mean, if you go back and look at his previous years, he started slow last year, the year before, but he always puts up around 4,000 yards. Always throws a lot of touchdowns. So we'll see. What I will
We'll
say
see.
is Kerwin Williams, everybody. Kerwin
Yeah.
Williams is going to go for about $35 on waivers this Thursday. So everybody get your bids in.
I don't think so. I don't think he's going to go for
Okay.
that much.
Okay.
I don't think he's going to. I mean, I really don't, because I think they're going to try to run a committee out of that backfield. I will say, in my other league, I was thrilled. I just took a flyer on him, picked him up for $1 on Sunday morning, and by Sunday afternoon, I was like, price gouging time.
Yeah. Yeah.
It'd be like Kerwin Williams. So I was like, who is that? He's somebody's backup. That's fine.
So he's one of the hot pickups. There's a few hot pickups we'll get to this week, but he's
Right.
the first one.
He'll be up there.
Yeah, for sure. So Dad Dix, like we said, the Russian is cut, and we'll see how he handles this, if he can bounce back, because he lost a major asset this week.
Really, definitely.
The next team in this division is Nick's team, who went 1-1.
Somehow.
He put up 66 points, and he won a game. Unbelievable. That's the kind of week this was. It's an unbelievable week.
Not for me.
No. Yeah.
But yeah.
He actually beat Louisiana, which I guess that's not that unbelievable, because he's about the unluckiest guy in our league. It seems like he's really. Every year we love his team coming in, and he never just starts so slow every year. Yeah. But anyway, Dave's team. Dave went 0 QB in the draft. Or not Dave, Nick. Nick went 0 QB in the draft.
And remains that way to this day.
Well, so what he decided to do is not spend $4 on Andy Dalton in the draft, because he wanted to keep his 2 stud tight ends. And then what he did once he got into week 1 of the season, he decided, I want to trade one of my top 2 stud tight ends for Andy Dalton. And to me, I don't understand why you wouldn't just spend $4 on Andy Dalton in the draft and keep your stud tight ends.
Or anyone. Or, you know what? Go nuts. Pay $6 and get like Matt Stafford or whatever.
Yes.
Quarterbacks were
Right.
going for nothing.
I know, right?
People were picking backups. And then you got Andy Dalton, and we saw what that was. It was 3 picks and no touchdowns. He would have been better off starting no one
We'll
than
have,
Andy
we'll have-
Dalton this week.
We'll have Nick on the podcast again next week. He'll be able to kind of talk about this trade. But to me, I think it's one of the most imbalanced trades that's ever happened in our league, I'm going to say.
Well, that's quite a statement.
It is, but I'm going to
But,
stand by it, because
but-
Andy Dalton he's a replacement level quarterback in this league. And Travis
Yeah.
Kelce is a top 3 or 4 tight end in this league. And
I was pleased with it.
for him to bail on his strategy of not worrying about quarterbacks so fast, it just seemed weird to me. But anyway,
But yeah, any team that scores 66 points with a 30-point defense is in trouble.
yeah,
The Los Angeles Rams are not going to carry Nick to too many victories. I do think he has reason to be pleased with his running back situation. Fournette
Yes.
looked good and reliable, and like he was going to get sufficient carries to put up points. And you know that Gronkowski's probably not going to be kept under 4 points all that often. I'm sure he can go to the waiver wire and pick up a more competent quarterback. So there's room to improve. But right now, this team is.
well, don't forget he's also got Kenny Galladay down there on his bench, who had 2 touchdowns in
Yeah.
week 1, 18 points. So
Team looks bad though. Team looks bad. I mean, but if this if the running backs panned out and the wide receivers had anything, and he had an actual quarterback in there, we'd be saying much better things about.
Well,
this.
what I'm going to say is I don't think anybody's running back situation has improved so much since the draft as Nick's has, because he now has Ezekiel Elliott for the entire year. That's most likely the situation here. He's going to have him all year, and he got him for $38, which means he's going to keep him for $41 next year. Even though next year he probably will get that suspension, but still $41 for Zeke.
I don't know. I'm not trying to read any tea leaves on the Zeke situation, but his running back, situation is solid. His tight end situation is still excellent with Gronkowski. He just needs a quarterback, and it's not that hard to get one. So
Yeah, I think Dalton will be okay. There's concerns about that offensive line in Cincinnati, and maybe he can't overcome that. Maybe he's not that great when there's a lot of pressure on his face. But
well, a lot of those
we'll
picks
see.
were tips.
Yeah,
They were getting to it.
yeah,
So
yeah. So anyway, this team has some work to do. 30-point defense, 66 points, but he also had a negative 7-point quarterback. So it's like a weird. He's not always going to have that either, right?
two players with negatives, and then two more that were under 3 points, and
Yeah.
another two that were under 5. I mean, this is just
so
ick.
Nick.
Just ick.
So Nick. So anyway, Nick's got some work to do, and we look forward to hearing from him next week when he can talk about the trade that he made. Hillers, you are up next. You went 0-2 this week. You put up 72 points.
I did. It was hard.
Rough start, although probably right about the middle of the pack scoring-wise, it seems like. Just not a lot going on for you point-wise here. I know you had higher hopes coming in. What were you thinking?
I did.
What were you thinking as the games were going on Sunday?
Brady let me down, and that was a Thursday thing. But Brady, he was, and I'm not buying into the hype. Oh, is he done? Is he too old now? After one game,
No.
I've been through too many seasons where people tell me Aaron Rodgers is done right before he lights up about 6 teams in a row to fall for that nonsense. But it wasn't crisp. He was skying a lot of those passes there, and I was thinking, boy, I really need more out of a top 2 quarterback than 10 points there. Otherwise, you were right. I should have paid better attention to the defense, but otherwise, I think I'm okay. I'm disappointed at the way that things have panned out with T.Y. Hilton. Obviously, I benched him. As top 10 wide receiver. It wasn't a terrible decision.
Scott
either,
Tolzien.
Yeah, Scott. Yeah, I can't deal with that. But so that's bad. But
Yeah.
mostly, I just think I got a little bit of underperformance down the lineup here, and I'm not terribly worried about it. I could easily add 10 points to Brady and a couple points to these wide receivers on any given week. So I'm not too worried. It just didn't pan out for me this week.
Yeah, Dalvin Cook.
Like Dalvin Cook. I was also worried about what's his name, Tariq
Cohen.
Well, yeah. I was like, who is that? And why is he taking Jordan Howard's touches and catching passes out of the backfield? That was upsetting.
That's waiver wire pickup number 2 this week. That's going to go for a lot of money because I don't think he's going away. I think he's going to be a part of that backfield. And that's not saying Jordan Howard's going to be bad. I think Jordan Howard's still going to get his.
Yeah, he looked good. Good.
But I think Tariq Cohen's going to be pretty good too because, especially with Kevin White going down, they were just running out of guys. There's
right. There's only
Kevin
so many
White,
left.
Not that Kevin White's a guy you can rely on, but he's a guy.
He's warm bodies.
He's
man.
a guy they were planning on having in their starting lineup, and now they don't have him anymore. So,
right.
So that's one less offensive talent for them. Anyway, so Tariq Cohen.
Has he ever done anything?
Not really. No. But another guy I've cursed. But overall, Hillers. He just Watkins. He did fine. I mean, Jared Goff looked good. Watkins just didn't get the touchdown, really. I mean, 58 yards, pretty solid. It's not terrible.
Some of these things will be better. Some of them will be worse.
You were able to pick up Kelsey, though. Tell us about the trade. I mean, we kind of talked about it already, but how did that go down?
Nick had sort of explained during the draft his philosophy of rather than spend even $1 at a quarterback at the draft, I'm going to trade for one later. And I'm not sure who he thought he was getting, but I knew who I had. I wasn't going to trade him Brady, so I gave him his pick of tight ends and threw up Andy Dalton, and he sent what I opened up the email assuming it was going to be a trade rejection, but it was a counter offer saying he wanted the Fleen instead, and I couldn't hit accept fast enough. It was just one of those things that was like, wow, this is waiver wire fodder, and I've super upgraded my tight end situation.
Yeah.
And I picked up Doyle off the waivers that morning for $1, so it's like that something I was really not that happy with about my
Doyle
team.
not on a team?
He got dropped. I think Andy dropped him and picked up Cameron Brate, who then he immediately dropped because he wasn't playing that week. So
Wow, just tight ends raining on Hillers.
Falling all over for me for no reason.
Yeah.
It was just one of those things that everything panned out my way, so I was real happy about it.
So down
we'll see if
week,
it does any good for you.
down
Yeah,
a week, but you still believe in your team.
I'm not panicking.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to the next division. We'll just move up to the next one on my standings list here. We'll go to the Bourbon division. And we're going to start with Pappy Van Winkle. And I just want to start, Patty, I want to say you screwed up the name. It should be Patty Van Winkle, not Pappy Van Winkle. You really botched that one. I mean, we all know what Pappy Van Winkle is, the bourbon, and we get that. But come on, man. Patty Van Winkle.
Yeah.
How great is that?
That was an easy one.
Yeah. Just adapt it to you, man. Just make it yours. But anyway, Patty, who has been really active on the message boards, which is awesome to see. He seems like he's really, really excited about being in the league. It's nice to see him asking questions. Everybody kind of be patient with him. Keep in mind that he's only been in the league for like 2 months, and we have really weird rules and weird ways we do things in this league. So it's kind of different to pick up and understand. But anyway, he puts up 97 points this week, mostly on the back of his 40 points combined between his defense and kicker. That's usually going to get you a win. And usually 2 wins if you get that. So not a lot up and down the rest of the lineup, but that's kind of the same with every team this week. If you look at
you won, right? It's because of your defense.
Yeah, you look at all the teams who scored a lot, they all had high-scoring defenses. And that's why they scored a lot. The offenses were just brutal, freaking brutal this week. But yeah, what do you think of Patty Van Winkle's team here?
It's kind of hard to know because I'm looking at it and it still seems like the combination of McCoy and Miller and Julio Jones is pretty scary, But then you look at it and you go, well, this is all defense and kicker, but that was true for everybody. You know what I mean? So I need more time to wait and see here. I don't love Sterling Shepard as a number 2. I don't love Matt Forte as a flex. With the way things are going with the Jets, but I still think that there's a lot to be salvaged, from this team, that they could still put a good starting lineup there. I view them as a competitive team, somebody that's kind of up there right now.
Yeah, I mean, just his keepers are so good coming in. I mean, McCoy, Breeze it was a tough matchup. That Minnesota defense is really good. So that's a tough matchup for Breeze on the road, first week in Minnesota. Lamar Miller, like you say, good. But, looking down at his bench, too, he has Corey Davis, the rookie, who has 69 receiving yards for Tennessee. Now, Tennessee, another offense that didn't really get going on Sunday. And
this decade.
Well, no, they were pretty good last year. But for a rookie to come in and get 69 receiving yards on a not great offensive day for them, that's pretty encouraging, I think, for him. And don't forget, he also has Jarvis Landry down there on his bench, who his game got canceled. So Patty had to kind of scramble in his wide receiver slot and throw Sterling Shepard in there. So, so not, good day for him, I guess. Luckily his defense bailed him out. The Ravens played the Bengals. So, that's, thank you, Andy Dalton, for that win. But, I think Patty's team is what we thought it was, right? I mean, we'll see.
Not necessarily a world beater, but tough to beat, and definitely not a gimme.
Not the deepest team in the world, but his starters are really strong. So
yeah.
So go Patty. I mean, are there any moves? Is there anything he could do? Any moves you'd want to make if you were him?
Not yet. As it gets closer to the trade deadline, I would be looking at some of those older guys and maybe setting myself up for next season. But he might be competing for a title by then if his games go his way. So
it is an older team for sure. Yeah. So yeah, he's got a short window here. So hopefully he can make some hay this year. Next team is the Hitmen. I went 1-1 this week. I put up 91.9 points. Thank God for you, Kareem Hunt. I'll just say, because the rest of my
that
team
was ridiculous.
Is a dumpster fire. Wow, Carson Palmer against. I mean, so I'll just go here, Hillers. Just kind of through what I was thinking on Sunday here. But if you look at my team and you look at all the offenses that were bad on Sunday, it's all guys I'm like. The Cardinals, terrible. Carson Palmer was awful, right? The 49ers did not score. They did not get going. The Washington Redskins, terrible offense, did not get going. Rob Kelly.
Yeah.
The Chargers, Keenan Allen, they did not do anything until the fourth quarter. The
Right.
Seahawks, Doug Baldwin versus the Green Bay Packers, did nothing. The Seahawks were terrible that whole game. They could not move the ball. And I honestly, I lost. And then the game I lost, and I told you this before, I stayed up late watching that game last night, and I was playing JD. I pulled the Chargers got 2 turnovers late. I pulled it within 1.6 points of JD, and my kicker had a 44-yard field goal as time was running out to give me the lead and bring that game to overtime. And I had 2 guys playing, and he only had 1, so I probably would have won the game at that point. And he kicks it, and he splits the uprights. But the Denver coach called timeout. so they got to call it back, and he's got to kick it again. He kicks it again, and the kick gets blocked. And that's the game, and I lose by 1.6 points to JD. So
That's a heartbreaker for sure.
oh my god.
But I mean, that's just fantasy football. I mean, that stuff just happens. But how worried are you about everybody not named Kareem Hunt on your lineup here? I mean, what's your panic level?
I'm starting to panic a little bit about Andrew Luck. That news gets worse and worse every day, basically because there's no news. Like there's no updates. Like, oh, he's finally throwing a football again. So really, until he comes back, I'm kind of in rough shape. So I did this without Andrew Luck, my starting quarterback. Odell Beckham, my basically my best player, was gone too. So that was kind of tricky. I don't know. I'm not terribly concerned, but I'm a little concerned.
Yeah, I'd be a little worried if I were you. I mean, some of these teams looked very unready to be good at football.
Yeah. I mean, I know the Seahawks typically start slow. Russell Wilson's a slow starter. You know, it takes a while for him to get going, and you know, I think Baldwin will be okay. I think the Chargers will be okay. That's a tough matchup in Denver, week 1.
Yeah.
You know, we'll see. Once Odell Beckham comes back, I don't have to start Rob Kelly anymore, for God's sakes. So we'll see.
That's going to be not very viable.
Yeah,
I don't think.
Yeah, the Redskins not good. So anyway, just bad offensive performances by the teams that my guys are on. So hopefully that bounces back. I'm not ready to make major changes or anything yet, but
To me, when the team is bad, it's more concerning than when the player has an off day. You know what I mean? It's like if they just underperform, that's fine. But if there's structural issues around them, that's when you start wondering, is this a season-long problem?
Carson Palmer looked fucking terrible. He looked done. He looked like Eli Manning done.
And Johnson going out isn't going to help him too much.
Yeah.
You know?
So they have the Colts next week in Arizona, I think. If that doesn't go well,
if you can't win that, then you just need to go elsewhere.
At least that's kind of my make or break. Like if that doesn't go well, then I know. All right, it's time to make a move.
You'll have to trade Bennett to Nick for Andy Dalton at that point.
No, not for Andy Dalton, man. I'm gonna get Gronk from him for that. So anyway, yeah, 1-1 for the Hitman. Next team, the Weenyay, 0-2. The Weenyay perennial favorite coming into the year. We love their team. We love their drafts. Their keepers are always amazing. He's been building this squad for how many years to compete, and he puts up 63 points in his opening week.
This is most of the teams that we're reviewing that did well this week, minus a good defense. I mean,
right.
It's like, if he'd had one of those 30-point defenses, we'd be saying, "Oh, Inye, top of the league, looking great, he's fine." But he didn't, so we went 0-2, and obviously 63 points is terrible. And to have your entire lineup go sub 10 points, I think there's definitely things that he should be worried about here. His Patriots, I don't know if either of those guys are going to be things you can show up for. The Chiefs are a tough defense. That was a tough game. They got. You messed up pretty bad, but considering they were so far behind and still Chris Hogan wasn't getting, catches and looks is a problem. That James White was totally overshown by Gillislee.
And he's got Mike Evans down on his bench, who couldn't play this week. So don't forget that.
No, I mean it's
and Doug Martin. So
yeah, right. I guess if there's any takeaway here, it's just team's a little fragile. They're not deep. It's if they have to rely on these guys more.
Well, yeah.
it's going to be a problem.
I mean, Mike Evans
Hopefully,
is his
hopefully he
stud.
won't. Hopefully he won't.
Yeah, I mean, you get down
Gurley
to it.
was
This is a
fine.
team. This is a team with Aaron Rodgers, Todd Gurley, and Mike Evans.
Yeah,
That's pretty solid. So
with AJ Green just thrown in
and
there
AJ
for
Green
sauce.
thrown in on top. So I don't think it's time to panic on this team.
No, the team's fine.
This team's
but
fine. Bad week.
Looks bad though. Looks real bad.
And Aaron Rodgers, bad matchup for Seattle.
Hey, they won.
They won.
a good day as a
was
Packers
ugly.
fan.
It was ugly,
Those
but it was a
Seahawks-
win.
Those Seahawks games.
Yeah.
They don't always go like that.
Another side note here, commission note. There were some scoring changes defensive-wise. We're not sure what happened to defensive scoring, but it randomly changed in the offseason to where it wasn't counting defensive touchdowns. So you may have noticed your score change on Monday night. That wasn't a decision to change defensive scoring. That was a decision to set defensive to maintain defensive scoring to what it's always been. So it's not like we made a rule change or anything like that happened. We basically just set it so that if a defense scored a touchdown, you got 6 points if you had that defense, which is basically standard in every fantasy league you'll ever play in. And it's always been standard in our league as well. For some reason, that went away.
Those things didn't happen under the Hillers administration. This league has gone to pot under new leadership here.
That's something that really ticked Andy off because that gave Nick the win over him. So he was upset. He was upset when that happened. I'm like, dude, that's just the way it is. He's like, I know, but I thought I had the win. So anyway, Weenye, I think they're going to be a strong contender.
Yeah.
I don't think we need to worry about them too much. Next team is Brett. Peanut butter jelly time. Oh, Brett.
Boy. Oh boy.
Oh, Brett.
What's to say about this?
Brett puts up 48.3 points. Starts a kicker on IR.
Very sad.
Yeah.
I mean, that's historically bad. To be sub 50 points is it's just unspeakable. To have no one on your entire team break 10 points.
Yeah.
Is something that
No
I don't know, man.
touchdowns.
Cash it in. This team isn't scary enough, on their merits for me to say, oh, it's just the underperformance. When I look at almost any lineup, almost any other lineup seems better in total.
You want an extra kick in the nuts. Brett decided to throw Zeke Elliott back because he thought he was going to be suspended until week 8. So,
yeah.
Otherwise,
Well,
Zeke
I mean,
Elliott
what
would...
can you do? You can't keep a guy for $60 that's not going to play for most of your season. But
You can, actually. You can.
He would have been better off.
He'd have
to
been
do so.
$57, and the next year he would have been $60 to keep. And if nothing else, he would have been a trade piece, at the trade deadline to give to a contender, so you could get some solid keepers.
Each of the people on this lineup, with the exception of like Russell Wilson, looks like somebody that if you'd gotten them their best year, they'd be awesome. But I think that year is behind almost this entire lineup.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is
Also, he lost Danny Woodhead, who
this is gonna be tough to watch.
He's got William Jefferson Sneed on his bench, which is fun to say.
There you go. Little moments of happiness. That's what this team's gonna need to be looking for.
Yeah, so, I mean, long to say.
I don't even know what moves he would make.
That's the thing.
It's like no one's gonna want these players right now.
Yeah.
Spend some money. Get some Kerwin Williams going. see what can happen.
He's got to take some shots. Yeah.
Take some shots. Maybe you can trade. Put some leverage on a team that needs a guy like that. I don't know. You sprinkle 2 or 3 touchdowns in here, and he's right around where the majority of the league scored. And you're up at almost 60. I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm not
look,
thrilled about
Russell
this.
Wilson is not going to score 8 points every week, right? I mean,
No,
he's going to start scoring.
Yeah, but no team can consistently be 50 points. But who's he going to beat?
Yeah. Yeah.
This team could get a much better than they would and still be a losing team most weeks.
He's got work to do, for sure.
Yeah, I don't even. This is a teardown.
Yeah. It was a teardown, and they drafted, and it's like, what do you... And this is what we got. I don't know.
Forgot to build it up again. Still a heap.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, Brett's got some work to do, man. He's got to, I don't know. It's
gonna be a
back to
long
the drawing
season.
board. Yeah. End Zone Bombardment Squad. It's going to the Scotch division here. EBS came out strong week 1, goes 2-0. Puts up 108 points. He was another 108 points week 1. You know what that means in this league? That means that you had a, wait for it. Where is he? 18-point defense and a 15-point kicker. 33 points combined, which means you scored a lot of points because nobody's offensive players did dick this week.
Right.
So, so that helped him. That gave him 18. But also, yeah, Matt Ryan put up some points. Ty Montgomery, Antonio Brown. But he did lose Allen Robinson for the season.
And that's bad news, but I think, with Antonio Brown and Michael Thomas, it's like you're really looking at a guy it's easy to pick up a slot for somebody to be sort of a fill-in flex wide receiver in this league. That's pretty deep. There's a lot of those types of guys out there that people would be willing to trade. I think Ty Montgomery looked like the real deal here, though. That he was.
He's fine.
A legit functioning running back, not just a converted wide receiver that they had no other choice. And for the most part, I think the rest of his players did what he would have expected them to do, and then it was plenty good for a triple-digit week, and that'll win you most weeks.
Yep.
So nothing to really worry about or do. Right now. I mean,
so with Allen Robinson down. Let's look at his lineup going forward here. He loses Allen Robinson, which is we'll say his flex.
Yeah, it's a flex.
So who's his new flex? Options include Amir Abdullah.
There you go.
Eric
I'd
Big
stop
Dick
right there.
Decker. Zay Jones.
No, it's Abdullah. Abdullah was playing and was, a functional running back for the Lions.
41
the Lions
total
were
yards.
The Lions were terrible. They were awful. But if it's a flex, you just need a guy.
The Lions were not terrible. The Lions were good. They won. They crushed the Cardinals.
Who was I thinking of? Anyway, I was watching
Colts.
Red Zone.
Maybe the Colts.
Maybe some blue team.
Yeah.
Right.
Blue team that plays in a dome.
But if it's a flex guy, you just want to make sure that he's getting his looks or getting his touches, and Abdullah will get that.
Abdullah's a fine flex. Yeah. He is on the market for a wide receiver, folks. So if you're looking to deal one, Anthony is looking to deal a quarterback for a wide receiver because he's got a 4-touchdown quarterback on his bench right now in Matthew Stafford. So keep that in mind. Yeah, this team's good. Anthony always, man, he's I don't know if it's the numbers he plays or whatever. I mean, it was a 33-point combination from his defense and his kicker. But that's still.
No, I'm not declaring him champion or anything.
Yeah.
But this is not going to be an easy game to win week to week.
He still had 3 double-digit point guys, and that was with Allen Robinson basically putting up nothing. So, this is a solid team. This team's in that top half that we're talking about of teams that can compete. So, next team. Oh, and he also beat the Assassins in that ever-growing rivalry. Keeps going. But yeah, love that those trade comments came through in that one email. That was awesome. Duplex of Mediocrity is our next team here. Dave puts up 95.3 points and goes 2-0 this week. He is one of the teams that did not have a gigantic scoring defense. He only had 20 combined between his kicker and his defense, but still pretty solid. But he had big days, some Derek Carr, Terrence West, Amari Cooper, Golden Tate. His strong number 2s came through. What do you think of Dave's team, Hillers?
Well, those number 2s are robust, but I don't believe in guys like Terrence West or Golden Tate yet. I think both those guys are capable of having that kind of number.
Hang on. What do you mean you don't believe in Golden Tate yet? He's been in the league for like 8 years and he does the same thing every year.
Yeah, and I've owned him many of those years, and it's always sort of underwhelming in aggregate, right? So he had a good day, good for him, but but this team doesn't need Golden Tate, right? it helped sort of boost his score, inflate it a little bit this week and get him the win over the Choops. So that's all well and good, but I still need to see more out of Terrence West before I think that that's going to work. But guys that I did not expect to pan out, like Terrence West, did just fine. And Derek Carr still looks good. Jordan Reed is going to have better weeks than that.
Yep.
I think this is a relatively scary team on the strength of mostly its wide receiver, and inclusive of the tight end, situation. The running backs are pretty weak, I think, but not necessarily a huge hindrance. If one of them gets a touchdown, I think he's going to be not quite 100 points a week, but still decent. And knowing the history of luck and victories, how it works with the duplex, hell, maybe it's good for a fourth title. I don't know. I mean, it never seems like a world-beating team, but some of these teams just keep winning, and this seems like maybe it fits that model.
This is a team that's rarely going to put up a 65-point week, but it's
Right.
also a team I feel like that is not going to put up a lot of 120-point weeks. This is a
Yeah.
team that's going to put up a lot of 95-ish to 100 points. You're going to have to put up points if you want to beat them. They're not going to be bad, and they're not going to be like crazy great either. But they are going to be consistent as hell in putting up pretty good points. So just keep that in mind when you're dealing with them. I'm gonna push back on your Golden Tate hate.
No one's wanted Golden Tate for. It's not a hate. It's just I know him. I know him too well. It's like an ex of mine. He was on my team for years.
He's been on a lot of folks' teams. You said no one wanted him. He went for $21 in the draft, so there were at least two people that wanted him. He had 12 targets. He had 10 catches. He is the number one option for Matthew Stafford in that offense right now.
I know.
So
Watch this be the year it becomes a thing.
he was a thing last year. I think he had 100 catches last year. So just he doesn't get a lot of touchdowns, but he's like a Wes Welker or like a Julian Edelman in that he gets a lot of catches. So just keep that in mind.
I don't know. Was he even a top 15 receiver last year? You say he's a thing. I mean, it's like at what level? Like he's always
top
started-
15s.
He's always enough to put in a lineup, and that's probably what you can get is good enough to put in a lineup, but not anybody that anybody's going to want
me
there.
for a little bit. I'll tell you.
No, I don't care that much.
Phil.
No, there's nothing to talk about him.
He was the number
I don't know.
23 receiver last year.
Yeah,
Started not great.
good enough to put in a lineup.
And then he went 22, 9, 4, 14, 0, 7, 20, 5, 12, 5, 14. He's a flex,
Yeah,
He's a flex.
right.
So, but in a PPR, he's much more valuable, I will say. Because
I will be interested to see what Terrence West does against more robust sort of defenses. It's like that defense won that game for him, and he just got a chance to run a lot. 19 attempts there. But he plays the Browns next week, so there's probably another week. But then once you start going into Jaguars, Steelers, Bears, Vikings, all that territory, that could look a lot worse.
yeah.
But
solid team.
yeah,
Los Chupanibres next. They come in at 1-1 because the field goal got blocked. And they scored 93.6 points. Thank you, Stephon Diggs, you asshole. A little bitter about this game. Got to be honest. This one was.
it's not about you.
This one hurt a lot. He had his big scores this week. He had Stephon Diggs, 2 touchdowns, 20 points. Dak Prescott played against the carcass of the New York Giants, and Matt Bryant, Matt Bryant had 12 points as a kicker. Yeah, that's awesome because none of his field goals got blocked.
You're gonna have to let it go.
What do you think of JD's team?
Let me pry this narrative away from you before this becomes a pity party. I think this is a team that's built on risk-reward guys. Guys that people said, yeah, that could pan out. But no one was positive that it would. And I think if even half of those guys pan out like he's hoping, that this team will be able to to be sort of in that Dave territory where they can put up a good amount of points. This is not a deep team. This is not a team where
I disagree. Oh, I'm going to push back on deep because he's got Jonathan Stewart, Theo Riddick, and Phillip Rivers on his bench.
but those are bench guys.
And Jeremy Maclin on his bench. Those are not bench guys.
Jeremy Maclin is maybe not a bench guy, but the other ones, who are they starting for?
Jonathan Stewart, he's starting for a lot of teams in this league. Phil Rivers would start for me right now.
Is it Jonathan Stewart isn't even starting for his own team anymore?
Yes, he
is
is. He was a starting running back. He had 14 points. He had 65 rushing yards and a touchdown.
Okay. Well, yeah, the team. After the draft, I looked at it and I go, that's bad because I hate to take gambles on guys like Terrell Pryor where he's in like a new situation and you don't know what you're going to get out of him. Diggs had a lot of hype and I saw him play a lot of really cool looking plays, but he had not yet built sort of a history there. But he doesn't need every single person to work here. He just needs a couple of them to work, and guys like Freeman and Prescott will be able to keep him stable.
I think this team is very similar to Dave's team in that it's a lot of. I don't think he's going to have a lot of low scoring weeks, but I don't think he's going to have a lot of crazy 120-point weeks either. I think this is another one of those teams where he's going to have a lot of guys who just consistently score a good amount of points.
Yeah. You never know though. It's so young. It's like the opposite of Patty's team. You know what I mean? Where it's like.
It is what it isn't because, like I said, he's got Stewart and Maclin on his bench. He's got I don't know.
Managing the lineup will be tricky.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough.
I bet this team's going to have some heartbreakers about bench totals.
Because I'm sitting here complaining, but he had Jonathan Stewart with 14 points on his bench, Jeremy Maclin with 11 on his bench. If he'd have played those guys, he'd have crushed me like a bug. So
yeah, I don't know why he's starting Emmanuel Sanders over a starting running back. But,
I didn't. Well, I mean, he's an Emmanuel Sanders guy. He's had him forever. I think Macklin's gonna have a big year this year. I think he's like
Maclin looked good this last week.
I think he's the Steve Smith of that offense. Like when Steve Smith, remember how he was kind of Flacco's go-to guy for those couple of years he was there.
Yeah.
But now with Flacco's hurt backo, it's kind of.
It's a little too early for me to be buying in on Ravens just because that game was such a one-sided affair.
Yeah. So anyway, I think this team is strong, consistent. Nobody really terrifies you, but they're not. But they're just solid,
Collectively, you can't afford to shit the bed against this team.
This division is so good. The Scotch division. This is the division right here, man. I'm telling you, because Assassins are bringing up the rear in this division at 1-1.
Yeah.
And they've even got a good team. Assassins put up 83 points. They go 1-1. This is a team that did not have help from defense and kicker. They had 6 total combined points. And
ouch.
They had scoring everywhere else. Mariota 18, Gordon 13, Jordy 13, Witten 11, Cooks 8. So that's where he got a lot of his scoring.
Classic guys, too. I mean, it's like, what are you going to say? It's like, oh, you can't count on Jordy Nelson or Jason Witten. Of course you can. You've been doing that for years.
Jason Witten against the Giants is the most sure thing in fantasy football. Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody was paying so much attention to Joe Mixon that they didn't really realize that there's plenty of consistent points to be had on this team. And Brandon Cooks was getting...
He only started Mixon because Ajayi didn't play. So
right. Well, that's what I'm saying. We were all, I don't know, is Joe Mixon going to be good? What to do with the Cincinnati backfield? Now paying attention to the fact that this team is filled with quality players.
Yeah, it doesn't even need him. Yeah.
He could be on his bench and see if he pans out or not.
Yeah.
And some of the guys that were maybe a little more questionable. I mean, even though Cooks only got 3 passes, it's clear that they were looking for him like downfield. And he was their big play guy. Yep. So you're not going to expect him to have huge catch numbers, but he could still put up, a ton of points on you. And with 88 yards, there easily could have been a touchdown in there too. And this would have been even nastier looking.
And I think it's going to take some time for him and Brady to develop that connection that they need to have. It's going to take maybe a few weeks for that to kind of get going. So, and once he gets Ajayi back, I mean, that's
There
going
are
to be.
there are a few players. I don't know if I think Melvin Gordon is top 7 running backs.
Did you
but
watch
maybe
that
he
game?
is.
Did you watch the late
Just
game?
just the red zone part, or not the late game? No, I didn't see it.
Oh my God, he was everything they did was Melvin Gordon. So their new head coach is Anthony Lynn, who was the former running backs coach of the Bills back when Rex Ryan was there. He's a running backs guy. He's a run game guy. Everything they did was Melvin Gordon. Like, he was the focal point of that offense for the majority of that game. And granted, it was against Denver in Denver, so that's tough to do. So it was a bad matchup for him. But I think he's going to have a big year. I think if Gordon can stay healthy.
I don't know. I mean, if you lean on that strategy too much, defenses do tend to key in on it. Sometimes you get some guys week one that
Yeah,
are
but-
taking advantage
But
of
it's not like the
having a new
Chargers can't
system or a
pass.
new look.
It's not like
That's
Phillip
true.
Rivers can't crush you over the top,
It's true.
So
It's true.
um,
Maybe he ends up a top 5 guy. If he does, watch out. This
Yeah.
might be championship caliber team.
I think this team's really good. And that's it. That's all the teams.
Okay.
You want to do power rankings?
Not really, but you said we would, so
You want to do let's just call them rankings. We'll leave out the power this week because there's very
Right,
little
there's-
power in these rankings.
no power to be had.
Right. So, you want to start us off? Go 12-7.
Okay, yeah. At the bottom is PBJ. That's they're gonna be there a lot.
Yeah.
Followed not too far out by Running Out of Fucks.
Yep.
I just think it's just bad. And here's where we get to people feeling aggrieved. I think because a lot of these things, I was like, I don't know.
Yeah. This gets
After that, I guess I would have Weenye.
Wow. Yes.
and then
Wow.
and then me, and then the Choops. Is that to 7?
That's 8.
Okay, and then I've got Dad Dicks over that.
Wow. Okay.
Big plummet for them.
Yeah. Well, I got him in the same spot. So, yeah, I have PBJ 12, 11. I have Nick 10. I have Hillers because, like you said, this is 10. Once you get to 10, it's like.
Right. Well, and I had a bad week.
And then you had a bad week, and it's like, there's like 1 or 2 guys I'm not as big on that other people are, so whatever. 9, I have me, Hitmen. 8, I have the Choops, because they beat me.
I forgot you.
Yeah, don't forget me. I was terrible.
Yeah, you're in the bottom. I'm going to have to... Dad Dicks gets moved up 1 spot.
Okay. And then at 7, I have Dad Dicks, because...
How did that happen? Oh, I've got Choops listed twice. Okay.
Yeah, so anyway, 6-1.
Okay, well, for me, Dad Dicks has moved up 1 because I forgot you.
Where,
And you're
so
not
you put me
you're
at
not
7
a top
or
6.
where?
You're not a top 6 team.
So where'd you put Hitman? 7, 8, 9,
8.
8.
We'll call it 8.
8-ish.
So then I've got, let's see, Assassins, Pappy Van Winkle, Duplex, TDJ, and EBS. Which,
Yeah,
I don't
again,
maybe.
it's never been so hard to do this, really. All right.
I feel confident about only the bottom 2 teams in the rankings. I think those are right on.
And
everybody else?
And in that
Ah.
order. Yeah. Yeah. At 6, I've got Weenye. At 5, I've got Patty Van Winkle. Change your name. At 4, I put EBS. There's a lot of owner cred going into that one. At 3, I've got the Duplex, more owner cred. 2, I've got TDJ, and at 1, I have the Assassins. Mainly because they're the only team this week that got crap from their defense and kicker and still
won.
Still put up a somewhat decent score. So, I don't know that, and they were doing it without one of their top running backs. So that's a team I really believe in. Is the Assassins? They're a team
That's crazy.
I don't want a part of this year. So
I don't understand the world anymore, man. It's
they made the playoffs last year. You forget?
I know.
Yeah.
It's not like it was in my youth.
What do you think Kerwin Williams goes for?
$24.
Yeah. What about like Tariq Cohen?
18.
Yeah. I'm with you somewhere around there. I think Kerwin Williams goes for 30. I think Grimes goes to 30 for Kerwin Williams. I really do.
I can see him panicking. Yeah. but I don't. You're not replacing David Johnson. You're getting Kerwin Williams. It's different.
Yeah.
Those points aren't coming back.
Right.
They're going to run a platoon in that backfield.
Yeah. They might sign Chris Johnson again. Who knows?
Yeah, he's going to have a job again.
Yeah.
Go find some free agents, everybody.
Yeah. So, anyway. All right. Good podcast, Illers. I think we might have kept it under an hour. 52 minutes I've got it at, roughly. So.
Oh, boy.
No, that's the second call after we got disconnected. So, right around an hour. So, anyway, we got to go. That way we can be under an hour. All right. For Hillers, for Merrill, for Nick. What are you talking about for Nick? This is Merrill signing off. We'll see. Talk to you later.